Have you ever walked away from a conversation replaying every word, every pause, every uncertain smile? Asking yourself why it never seems to flow the way you want it to? You tell yourself you don't care, that you're above it, but you do. Because no matter how strong, disciplined, or independent you try to appear, there's still that quiet ache. The desire to be understood, respected, and liked, not for who you pretend to be, but for who you truly are. You felt it in meetings when your words went unheard, in friendships that drifted into silence, in the awkward weight of small talk that never becomes connection. You felt it when people seem drawn to others effortlessly, while your own presence fades into the background. You start wondering, what am I missing? You've read about confidence, charisma, communication, yet none of it lasts. Because the truth is, likability isn't a trick. It's not about saying the right things or wearing the right mask. It's something deeper, something the Stoics understood long before modern psychology gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius knew this tension. Imagine him, emperor of Rome, surrounded by flatterers and skeptics, soldiers and senators. A man who could command armies with a gesture, yet struggled to command peace within his own heart. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote. But what did that mean when the people closest to him misunderstood him? When his words carried the weight of life and death, yet loneliness followed him like a shadow? Marcus learned what most of us never do, that people don't respond to your words, they respond to your energy, your composure, your ability to stay centered when everything inside you wants to be liked. Epictetus, once a slave, echoed the same truth centuries earlier. If you wish to be loved, love virtue. But how does that translate to the modern world? To texts left unread? To conversations that feel mechanical? To relationships that fade not from distance, but from disconnection? Today, the world rewards noise. The loudest voice in the room often wins. Or so it seems. Social media trains us to perform instead of connect, to speak before listening, to chase validation instead of meaning. And yet the people who move us most, the ones we admire, respect, and are drawn to, are not the loudest. They are the calmest. The ones who seem fully present. The ones who look at you as if time slows down. The Stoics understood why. Because likability, in its purest form, is presence. It's emotional control disguised as warmth. It's self-discipline that feels like comfort. It's confidence without arrogance. A quiet steadiness that tells people, you are safe here. That is what Marcus mastered. That is what Seneca wrote about when he said, we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. When you free yourself from the fear of judgment, your conversations change, not because others suddenly value you more, but because you no longer need their approval to feel whole. And that's the paradox. The more you chase being liked, the more people pull away. The moment you stop chasing and begin mastering yourself, your tone, your patience, your awareness, people are magnetically drawn to you. It's not manipulation, it's alignment. It's becoming so grounded in who you are that your words carry gravity. This is what we'll uncover together. 8 Stoic conversation habits that make people like you instantly. But not for the reasons you think, because the Stoics never tried to be liked. They tried to live in accordance with nature, with reason, with truth. And in doing so, they became the kind of people others could trust. You don't need to force connection. You just need to remove the noise that hides your natural depth. The habits you'll discover here are ancient, whispered by philosophers, proven by emperors, forgotten by time. And when you begin to live them, you won't just be liked, you'll be remembered. But before we reveal them, there's something you must understand. A deeper law of human nature that Marcus never wrote in his journals, yet lived every single day of his life.
We live in a world that worships visibility, but fears vulnerability. Everyone wants to be seen, yet few are willing to be truly known. Every day you scroll through faces smiling through filters, words curated for effect, lives edited to perfection. You see people who seem effortlessly magnetic, who walk into a room and capture attention without even trying. And then there's you, replaying sentences in your head, wondering why connection feels like a game you never learned to play. But here's the truth the Stoics understood. You're not broken. You're simply misaligned with nature, with your own nature. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That anxiety you feel before speaking, that hesitation that whispers, "Don't say it, they won't understand you." It's not reality. It's the imagination of rejection. It's your mind trying to predict how others will respond, instead of staying rooted in the only thing you can ever truly control, your intention. Marcus Aurelius faced this same tension daily. Imagine standing before an empire, surrounded by advisors who flatter, deceive, or betray, yet still needing to speak with clarity, fairness, and calm. The pressure to please, to persuade, to be liked wasn't new to him. It's the same pressure you feel when you want to be accepted, respected, and valued, whether in a conversation with your boss, your friends, or even your family. But Marcus learned something essential. The more he tried to control how others saw him, the more he lost control of himself. The Stoics called this prohoresis, the power of moral choice, the ability to direct your own mind regardless of external events. In conversation, this means learning to anchor yourself in truth, not reaction, to respond instead of perform, to listen more than you speak, not because you're shy, but because you understand the value of restraint. Epictetus, born into slavery and later freed by his own discipline, taught his students that freedom isn't the absence of restraint, it's mastery over impulse. When you speak from impulse, to fill silence, to prove yourself, to earn approval, you surrender that freedom. But when you pause, breathe, and choose your words deliberately, you reclaim power. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient wisdom. Studies show that when we feel anxious in conversation, our amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, floods our body with cortisol, the stress hormone. It makes us react instead of respond. But Stoicism trains the opposite. Through awareness, through detachment, through logos, the rational principle that governs all things, you calm that storm. You replace tension with stillness. People can feel that. They may not know why they trust you, but they will, because calm is contagious. The Stoics weren't trying to charm anyone. They were trying to live in accordance with nature, to embody integrity in every act, including speech. And when you live that way, you don't need to impress people to be liked. They sense your steadiness. They sense that you're not seeking validation, you're offering presence. Think about the people you're drawn to. They're not perfect speakers, they're grounded ones. They look you in the eyes, and for a moment, the noise of the world fades. That's what Stoic communication feels like. Not loud, not performative, but quietly powerful. It's not about forcing chemistry, it's about embodying calm. Because when you stop trying to be interesting and start being interested, everything changes. But here's the hidden paradox, the one most people never realize. Every conversation you enter reveals who you truly are, not through your words, but through your state. The Stoics called this your inner citadel, the fortress within that no one can invade unless you open the gates. When you're grounded, your words carry weight. When you're reactive, they scatter like dust. So before you learn the 8 habits that make people like you, you must first understand this. Likability begins not in the tongue, but in the mind. It's not what you say that matters most, it's the energy from which it's spoken. And until you master that, no technique, no trick, no phrase will save you. The question is, can you stay still inside the storm of human judgment? Because the one who can already speaks louder than words ever could.
There's a certain silence that follows you when you've spent years trying to be liked. It's the silence that comes after you walk away from another conversation that felt one-sided, where you listened more than you spoke, smiled more than you felt, and left wondering if they ever saw the real you. It's the silence that whispers in crowded rooms, in group chats, in meetings where you nod and laugh but feel like a ghost among faces. The Stoics understood that silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Not because he was cynical, but because he was preparing his mind to face misunderstanding with calm. He knew that people rarely see the truth as it is. They see it through the haze of their own emotions. So when someone dismisses you, forgets you, or misunderstands you, they're not rejecting you, they're reacting to their own shadows. Yet we forget that. We take every cold glance and awkward pause personally, and it chips away at us like slow erosion. Modern life only sharpens this wound. Social media tells you that connection is easy, that friendship is one click away, that love can be found by swiping right. But beneath the filters and hashtags lies an epidemic of loneliness. We've never been more connected, yet never more unseen. The Stoics would call this a failure to live in alignment with nature, because nature doesn't rush to be approved. A tree doesn't beg to be admired, it grows. A river doesn't ask to be heard, it flows. But humans, trapped in ego and expectation, forget that our worth isn't determined by echoes of validation. Seneca once wrote, "He who seeks to please all men will lose himself." Every time you mold yourself to fit someone's approval, you trade authenticity for acceptance, and that bargain always ends in emptiness. Epictetus taught his students that no insult, no rejection, no judgment has power over you unless you grant it permission. Remember, he said, it is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. When someone ignores you, that's a fact. The pain you feel, that's interpretation. The story your mind builds around that moment is what creates suffering. You start believing you're unworthy, uninteresting, not enough. And yet the Stoics would ask, by whose measure? Who defined enough? The one who is guided by reason, not opinion, stands unshaken. But that's hard, isn't it? Because our biology craves belonging. We are wired to connect. Our nervous system calms in the presence of trust and safety. That's why rejection stings. It's not vanity, it's survival. But Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress that need, it teaches you how to transcend it. It asks you to find safety within yourself first, to become your own source of validation, so that no external voice can distort your peace. Think of it this way. The more you depend on others to confirm your value, the more fragile your presence becomes. People can feel that. The tension, the invisible need behind your words. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. True connection, the kind that draws people toward you, begins the moment you release that need. When you no longer speak to impress, but to express truth. When you stop performing and start being. That's what Marcus meant when he said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In the same way, waste no more time worrying whether people like you. Be likable by being grounded. Because people don't fall in love with perfection, they fall in love with presence. And here's the quiet revelation, one the Stoics hinted at but never fully explained. When you accept being misunderstood, you begin to understand others. When you stop fearing rejection, you start radiating acceptance. That shift changes everything. You become the person people feel safe around.
You stop chasing attention and start commanding it, not through volume, but through calm authority. You become rare in a world addicted to noise, and in that rarity lies magnetism. But to reach that state, the Stoics would first ask you to confront something deeper, your attachment to identity, the version of yourself you keep performing for the world. Because until you understand who's speaking through you, every conversation will be an echo of someone else's expectations. The next step, then, is not about talking differently, it's about seeing differently.
Every conversation you've ever ruined, every moment that turned awkward or forced, can be traced back to a single invisible presence: the ego. The Stoics didn't see ego as pride alone. To them, it was illusion, a mask built from fear and memory, whispering constantly, "What will they think of me?" It's that subtle tension in your chest before you speak, that mental rehearsal where you plan your sentences like a soldier preparing for battle. Ego is the ghost that tries to protect you, but ends up suffocating your authenticity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you're distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke." Imagine that, the power to revoke pain. Not avoid, not suppress, revoke. Because pain, like the ego, only survives through permission. When you enter a conversation from the ego, you are not truly there. You're performing a version of yourself, the witty one, the confident one, the agreeable one. You listen not to understand, but to respond. You smile not from warmth, but from defense. The Stoics would call this a distortion of logos, the rational essence that connects all beings. Every time you let ego speak, you sever that connection. You become like an actor forgetting the script, improvising lines to win applause instead of telling truth. Epictetus warned, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." To the modern ear, that sounds harsh, but he wasn't saying, "Be less." He was saying, "Be real." The courage to be misunderstood is the foundation of all genuine connection. Because when you no longer fear looking foolish, you start to speak from truth instead of performance. Ego makes us obsessed with impressions, how we sound, how we appear, how others respond. But Stoicism teaches detachment, not indifference. Detachment means you care about the message, not the outcome. It means you enter a conversation to contribute, not to control. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "We suffer more from imagination than from reality." The ego imagines judgment in every silence. It hears rejection in every pause. It fabricates a battlefield where there is only exchange. And so you tense up, you rush, you interrupt, you talk over others just to avoid feeling invisible. But silence, to the Stoic, was never the enemy. It was the proving ground of peace. When you can stand in silence without needing to fill it, you become magnetic. Because people sense depth in those who don't fear stillness. Think of the people who draw you in. They don't dominate the space, they stabilize it. Their presence feels like gravity. You find yourself leaning toward them not because they demand attention, but because they don't. They've mastered what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy, but equanimity, emotional balance. It's the calm eye within the storm. Marcus practiced this daily. He faced betrayal, flattery, and manipulation, yet his writings reveal not bitterness, but serenity. Why? Because he never confused his identity with his reputation. He knew he could not control perception, only intention. The ego dies the moment you accept that truth. Modern psychology mirrors this wisdom. When your focus shifts from "how am I doing" to "what can I give," your brain transitions from the amygdala, fear center, to the prefrontal cortex, rational center. You move from anxiety to clarity, from defense to contribution. That's why Stoic presence feels different. It's neurologically different. It's not about confidence, it's about alignment. The ego divides, presence connects. The Stoics didn't seek to win conversations, they sought to elevate them. Every word, every pause, every look was a reflection of inner order. They weren't trying to be liked, they were trying to live rightly. And in that pursuit, they became unforgettable. Here's the paradox the ego never understands. People are drawn to those who don't need to be liked. Authenticity is magnetic because it's rare. In a world of pretense, honesty feels like oxygen. But you can't fake it. You can't perform being genuine. You must dissolve the ego that's performing at all. When you do, something extraordinary happens. Your presence starts speaking before your words do. The Stoics knew this. They called it living according to nature. You may call it charisma, confidence, or peace, but to them, it was simply harmony. And yet, ego never disappears quietly. It clings, it resists, it whispers that without it, you'll be invisible. That's the illusion you'll have to confront next. The fear that if you stop performing, people will stop caring. But the Stoics discovered the opposite. When you stop trying to be impressive, you finally become impactful.
Imagine sitting across from someone who makes you feel completely heard. Not the kind of half-attention that waits for its turn to speak, but the rare stillness that absorbs your words as if they matter. You feel yourself relax, your guard lowering, your thoughts untangling. What you're feeling isn't charisma, it's presence, the quiet strength the Stoics spent their lives cultivating. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught his students in the painted porch of Athens that wisdom begins not with speaking, but with listening. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, he said, so that we may listen twice as much as we speak. In that ratio hides a forgotten truth. Most people listen to reply. The wise listen to understand. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he wasn't writing for others. He was listening to himself. Every line was an act of inner dialogue, an emperor whispering truth back into his own storm of responsibilities. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Marcus intuitively practiced. Deep listening activates empathy circuits in the brain. It lowers defensiveness, synchronizes breathing, and even aligns heart rhythms between people. In other words, listening literally connects bodies as well as minds. The Stoics understood this long before the science existed. They knew that to influence others, you first had to master the art of attention, the most powerful currency of human interaction. But we've forgotten how to pay attention. The world moves too fast. Notifications split our focus, and conversations have become performances of waiting. You can see it in the way people's eyes dart to their phones, the way their posture leans not toward you but toward escape. In a time when everyone is distracted, the person who can hold attention without demanding it becomes extraordinary. Epictetus called this sophrosyney, temperance, moderation, control of one's impulses. To listen without interrupting is not weakness, it is discipline. To remain calm while someone else rants or brags or complains is not passivity, it is self-command. Seneca warned, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." When you master your attention, you master your presence, and people can feel it. They may not know why they trust you, but they will, because stillness is rare, and the rare always draws. Think of every argument you've ever lost, not because your reasoning was wrong, but because emotion drowned it. The Stoics knew that words born from agitation never reached their mark. They bounce off the listener's defenses like arrows on armor. But words born from stillness penetrate, not through force, but through resonance. Listening grants you that stillness. It slows the rhythm of the exchange until truth can surface. Even silence, when held with composure, speaks volumes. Marcus described it as acting as though you had already said everything that needed to be said. Modern leaders call it gravitas, that invisible weight of credibility that makes people lean in. But the Stoics would simply call it self-control. In the modern world where everyone tries to be heard, the one who listens becomes powerful, not because they dominate, but because they create space. In that space, others unfold. They reveal what they truly think, what they truly fear. And once you understand that, you can respond not to their words, but to their needs. That's the highest form of communication. Not manipulation, but compassion informed by clarity. The Stoics listened for this reason, to align their judgments with reality. They believed that to speak well, you must first perceive accurately, and perception requires patience. Here lies the quiet paradox. The more you slow down, the more influence you gain. The Stoic in conversation isn't racing to prove intelligence or wit. They move like water, adapting, observing, reflecting. Their calm unsettles those addicted to chaos. Their silence challenges those who hide behind noise. It's not an act of superiority. It's an act of service. By being still, they give others the chance to see themselves. And in that mirror of attention, people find comfort. That's why they remember you. Not because of your words, but because of how they felt when you said nothing. So before any habit can make you likable, you must reclaim this one forgotten art, the ability to listen without agenda. Because when your attention is pure, your presence becomes unforgettable. And when your presence becomes unforgettable, words are almost unnecessary. The Stoics didn't chase charm, they cultivated calm. And calm, when expressed through listening, becomes the loudest voice in any room.
Most people don't actually see others, they project onto them. They listen through filters of judgment, insecurity, and assumption. When someone speaks, we don't hear their truth, we hear our story about them. The Stoics called this the great illusion of perception, the way our mind paints the world not as it is, but as we are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But in conversation, that line takes on a new meaning. You have power over your interpretations, not the person before you. The difference between being liked and being misunderstood often lies in that single discipline, the discipline to perceive without prejudice. Seneca once observed that no man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom is intentional. It requires the effort to see beneath the surface of emotion. A Stoic doesn't just hear words, they observe tone, body, silence, contradiction. They look for the gap between what is said and what is meant. They watch anger not as an attack, but as a signal of pain. They see arrogance not as offense, but as insecurity wearing armor. To them, every behavior hides a cause, and every cause deserves understanding before judgment. In modern psychology, we call this empathic detachment, the ability to stay emotionally aware without being emotionally captured. The Stoics mastered it centuries before it had a name. Picture Marcus Aurelius in the Roman court, surrounded by senators dripping with flattery and hidden motives. Every word spoken to him was a performance. But Marcus didn't react to tone, he watched intention. He noted when fear disguised itself as obedience, when ego hid behind politeness. He trained himself to see reality through calm observation. To him, this was not manipulation, it was mercy. By understanding others clearly, he could act justly. Stoicism taught that to judge correctly is to act rightly. And clarity begins with perception, the ability to see people not through what they make you feel, but through what they are. Today, this ancient clarity could change your relationships. Imagine entering every conversation without needing to be liked, without fearing rejection, without projecting stories from your past. You'd suddenly start noticing things most people miss. The flicker of doubt in someone's eyes when they pretend to be confident, the hesitation before a truth, the relief when they realize you're not judging them. People can feel when they are seen without bias. It's disarming. It's magnetic. Because in a world obsessed with performance, authenticity feels like oxygen. And the Stoic, by mastering perception, gives others that breath of relief. But this clarity isn't easy. It demands brutal honesty with yourself. It means confronting your own triggers, the way you interpret someone's tone as disrespect when it's just bluntness, or their silence as rejection when it's just thought. Epictetus warned his students, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your judgment of it. In conversation, that judgment decides everything: your response, your tone, your emotion, your future connection. So when someone offends you, pause. When someone praises you, pause. When someone confuses you, pause. The Stoics' pause is not hesitation, it is power. It's the space between stimulus and reaction, the space where wisdom lives. And here lies the paradox. The more you stop trying to decode people emotionally, the more you begin to understand them deeply. Because you're no longer reacting, you're observing. You're not taking their behavior personally, you're witnessing it impersonally. The Stoics didn't believe in cold detachment, they believed in warm objectivity. It's the calm gaze that sees truth without distortion, empathy without entanglement. And this gaze, this ability to perceive clearly without being pulled, is what makes a person unforgettable. People like those who make them feel safe. But safety doesn't come from soft words or forced kindness. It comes from being understood without being judged. To see clearly is to love wisely, and to love wisely is to live stoically. When you begin to see others not as enemies or tools or mirrors, but as fellow travelers struggling in the same storm, something changes in your energy. Your presence stops demanding attention and starts granting peace. That is why the most Stoic people often say the least, yet connect the deepest. They don't manipulate affection, they radiate it through composure. And in that still perception, people find what they've been searching for all along: someone who truly sees them.
We live in an age of noise, where silence feels awkward, pauses feel like mistakes, and the loudest voices dominate rooms. But the Stoics believed the opposite. They saw restraint as strength, brevity as elegance, and clarity as virtue. To them, speech was sacred, not because words held power by themselves, but because the mind that shaped them revealed the soul. Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue, Zeno of Citium once said. To the Stoics, a word misused was a moment of truth lost. And yet today, we speak to fill space, to prove value, to chase approval. We interrupt not because we're cruel, but because we fear being forgotten. But a Stoic doesn't speak to be remembered, they speak to reveal reality. Marcus Aurelius rarely raised his voice, yet his words carried through armies. Seneca wrote that speech should be simple, plain, and sound. Epictetus told his students to be silent for the most part, or say only what is necessary. These weren't calls for withdrawal, they were calls for precision.
The Stoics understood what modern neuroscience confirms, that restraint in speech signals confidence, that stillness in communication projects safety. When you choose words carefully, your presence expands. When you speak with purpose, people feel your clarity. When you pause before responding, you communicate a kind of respect that no charm can imitate. Think about the last time someone spoke slowly and intentionally, how the room seemed to lean in. Their silence wasn't emptiness, it was gravity. The Stoics mastered that gravity through discipline. Before they spoke, they filtered words through reason. Seneca wrote, "Speech that charms is speech that is true." To be charming, therefore, is not to perform. It is to align thought and language so completely that the listener feels no gap between your mind and your words. Modern charisma studies show that people who use fewer words but convey emotional precision are rated as more intelligent, more trustworthy, and more likable. It's not about vocabulary, it's about vibration, the quiet certainty that you mean what you say. But this level of discipline doesn't come naturally. It's forged in self-awareness. The Stoic must first master the internal dialogue before mastering conversation. If your thoughts are chaotic, your words will be scattered. If your mind is anchored, your sentences will be calm. That's why Marcus Aurelius began each day reminding himself, "Let no act be done without purpose." Imagine if you applied that to your speech. If every word you said carried intention, compassion, and clarity, you'd instantly stand apart. People would start describing you in ways they can't quite define. There's something about the way you speak. It feels honest. That something is the Stoic habit of verbal integrity. In today's conversations, the temptation is always to fill silence. But silence, when used with confidence, becomes a mirror. It makes others reveal themselves. The Stoic pause, that slight stillness before responding, disarms anxiety and invites truth. It says, "I'm not here to win this conversation, I'm here to understand it." And people can feel that difference. They feel it in your tone, in your patience, in your lack of rush. When you slow down, others subconsciously trust you more. Their nervous systems mirror your calmness. What feels like silence to you feels like safety to them, and safety is the foundation of connection. So the next time you speak, ask yourself 3 questions the Stoics lived by. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If the answer is yes to all 3, speak, and speak simply. Because the truth doesn't need decoration, only delivery. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Most of our conversational anxiety comes not from others, but from the imagined fear of their judgment. The Stoic dissolves that fear by anchoring to virtue, by remembering that good speech is not about impressing others, but about expressing truth without disturbance. And here's the paradox that Marcus understood better than anyone. When you stop trying to sound impressive, you become magnetic. When you no longer feel space, space begins to honor you. Your silence becomes presence. Your words become power. Because when a Stoic speaks, they don't chase approval. They command attention through authenticity.
The first Stoic conversation habit, and perhaps the most powerful, is the art of listening with stillness. Not the kind of listening most people do, waiting for their turn to reply, but a listening that dissolves ego, quiets the mind, and gives the speaker space to be fully seen. In our age of constant noise, true listening is rare, and therefore magnetic. When you listen deeply, you become the calm in someone else's storm. You become the mirror through which they rediscover clarity. That's why Epictetus, who began life as a slave, became one of the most respected teachers in Rome. He said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." It wasn't just clever advice, It was survival wisdom. Epictetus learned that those who listened ruled conversations because they understood what others missed, that silence can reveal more truth than words ever could. Modern neuroscience agrees. Studies on social bonding show that people feel a surge of trust and emotional safety when they sense they are being listened to. Not just heard, but understood. Their heart rate slows, their defenses drop, they begin to open. But here's where the Stoic difference lies. A Stoic doesn't listen to fix, to judge, or to perform empathy. They listen to observe truth. When someone speaks, a Stoic isn't looking for how to respond. They're watching how truth moves through the other person, the tone, the pauses, the contradictions. They listen like a philosopher, watching the universe reveal itself in a single conversation. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." In conversation, this becomes listen more to understand others and speak less to defend yourself. Imagine applying that today. When someone criticizes you, instead of reacting, you breathe, you let the words settle, and you ask yourself, what truth, however small, might exist here? That's Stoic listening. It's not submission, it's mastery. Because only the person who is not easily provoked can truly listen. But this habit is not easy. It requires taming your own inner dialogue, that constant voice rehearsing responses, defending, interrupting. The Stoics called it logikon, the rational faculty, the observer behind the thought. When you strengthen that observer, you create space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, described this space as the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude. In listening, that space becomes your power. It lets you respond with reason, not reaction. It turns ordinary interactions into art. Try this. Next time someone speaks, don't think about what you'll say next. Watch their face, their energy, their pauses. When they finish, wait a heartbeat longer before replying. That pause tells their nervous system, you matter. And in that moment, something ancient happens. Trust forms. Because people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. And stillness makes them feel safe. Seneca wrote that no one can heal a wound by denying it. When you listen without interruption, you allow others to face their wounds without judgment. You give them a silent permission to be human. That's why the Stoic listener becomes magnetic. Not because they are charming, but because they are unshakably present. Presence is the new charisma. You can feel it across a room, in a quiet nod, in the way someone's eyes don't drift when you speak. And in that stillness, the world slows down. This first habit is not about technique, it's about transformation. You cannot fake stillness. It's the reflection of an ordered mind. When you master it, your conversations stop being performances and start becoming sanctuaries. People leave your presence lighter, calmer, clearer, even if they can't explain why. And that's the essence of Stoic connection. To offer calm where there was chaos, clarity where there was confusion. Listening with stillness doesn't just make people like you, it makes them remember you. Because in a world that rarely listens, being heard feels like being loved.
Most people ask questions to fill silence. The Stoic asks questions to uncover reality. When you meet someone, you can feel whether they're waiting to talk about themselves or genuinely curious about you. Curiosity is the soul's signal of humility, and humility, to the Stoic, is the foundation of wisdom. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, began his life as a merchant. When a shipwreck destroyed everything he owned, he wandered into a bookseller's stall and discovered the teachings of Socrates. That day, he learned a lesson that shaped his philosophy forever. Questions change destinies. Zeno realized that the wisest men weren't those who spoke most, but those who asked best. And every great Stoic who came after him inherited that discipline, the ability to ask questions that revealed character, motive, and truth. Epictetus would often stop his students mid-sentence and ask, "Do you know what you are saying?" It wasn't sarcasm, it was a mirror. He wanted them to confront their own thoughts before sharing them. The Stoics believed that unexamined words lead to unexamined lives. So they asked, patiently, sincerely, endlessly. In conversation, they sought understanding over validation. They didn't ask to impress, they asked to reveal. Seneca wrote, "To be wise is to know what to overlook." And questions, when used well, separate the meaningful from the meaningless. They slice through the fog of assumption and expose the truth that hides beneath the surface. Modern psychology calls this active curiosity. When someone feels genuinely explored, not interrogated, but understood, their brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. They feel valued, seen, respected. But the Stoics' version of curiosity isn't emotional manipulation, it's service. It's the disciplined choice to guide another toward clarity for their sake, not yours. Imagine you're speaking with someone, and instead of responding with your own story, you ask, "What made you feel that way?" Or, "What did you learn from it?" You shift from performer to philosopher. You become the kind of person who helps others understand themselves. That is magnetic. People like those who make them feel wise, not those who make them feel inferior. Marcus Aurelius applied this in his leadership. When his generals presented conflicting opinions, he wouldn't argue, he would question. What would happen if we did nothing? Or, what would you do if this were your family, not soldiers? These questions exposed motives, fears, and truths without aggression, and people trusted him more for it. His rule was quiet but commanding because his curiosity wasn't about ego, it was about clarity. The Stoic asks not to challenge others, but to challenge illusion. Here lies the subtle tower of this habit. Good questions create safety. They allow the other person to feel in control while you guide the direction. They calm tension. They open doors to honesty. But bad questions, those driven by vanity or judgment, close those doors instantly. That's why the Stoic trains the mind to stay neutral while asking. You don't ask to be right, you ask to see clearly. You don't ask to appear wise, you ask because you wish to understand. The ancient Stoics knew that the human heart opens not to cleverness, but to presence. Try this. In your next conversation, replace advice with questions. Instead of saying, "You should do this," ask, "What outcome do you truly want?" Or, instead of "That's wrong," ask, "Why do you see it that way?" It's astonishing what happens. The defensive energy melts away. The tone softens. The truth reveals itself. You become not a debater, but a mirror. And in that mirror, people see themselves more clearly, and they associate that clarity with you. The Stoics believed that truth must be discovered, not imposed. That's why their conversations often felt like meditations, slow, deliberate, honest. They didn't talk to prove themselves, they talked to refine their understanding. Every question was a chisel shaping the marble of thought. So when you practice this habit, you're not just making people like you, you're making them think deeper, live wiser, and remember you longer. Because long after words fade, people remember who made them feel seen and who made them think.
In every conversation, there's an invisible battle, not between people, but between impulses, between the urge to react and the wisdom to respond. The Stoics understood that the person who controls their reaction controls the entire interaction.
Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Imagine applying that, not just in life, but in your daily conversations. Someone criticizes you, mocks you, interrupts you, and instead of flinching, you remain calm, deliberate, grounded. That silence, that steadiness shifts the energy instantly. You stop being a participant in chaos and become the anchor of reason. Epictetus taught his students to visualize insults as the noise of a passing cart, irrelevant, transient, harmless. If someone speaks ill of you, he said, remember that he speaks ill of what he supposes you to be, not of what you really are. To the Stoic, emotional control isn't repression, it's precision. It's knowing when to let go and when to stand firm. They didn't avoid emotion, they mastered it through perspective. And in conversation, that mastery translates into unshakable charisma, because nothing is more magnetic than composure in the face of tension. Think of the last argument you saw escalate. It wasn't logic that fueled it. It was emotion. One person reacted, then the other matched the energy, and soon reason vanished. Now imagine a Stoic in that same situation. They hear the insult, they feel the sting, but they pause. They breathe. They remember, my judgment decides my peace. That single breath is the difference between losing control and commanding respect. Modern neuroscience supports this. Emotional regulation activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for wisdom, empathy, and decision-making. Stoics discovered this thousands of years before science confirmed it. Seneca once compared anger to a fire that consumes the vessel it burns in. He warned that the greatest victories in life are those won over ourselves. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, he wrote, for he is not permitted to prove himself. The Stoics saw emotional triggers as opportunities for training. Every insult, every argument, every misunderstanding was a gymnasium for the soul, a chance to practice virtue under pressure. And conversation, they believed, was one of the best arenas for this practice, because it's in dialogue, not solitude, that our ego is most easily exposed. In modern terms, this habit is emotional neutrality, the ability to stay calm without appearing detached. It's not coldness, it's control. You can disagree without hostility, correct without condescension, express emotion without losing balance. When you practice this, your presence becomes therapeutic. People feel safe speaking to you, even about difficult things, because they know you won't explode or crumble. You become the emotional regulator of the room, the calm center others orbit around. Try this in your next heated conversation. When you feel the urge to defend or prove, don't. Let the wave pass. Let silence speak first. You'll notice something powerful. The other person will begin to mirror your calmness, because emotions are contagious. And when you control yours, you control the emotional climate of the entire conversation. That's not manipulation, it's mastery. It's the Stoic recognition that power lies not in force, but in restraint. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, loss, and war, yet his writings show no bitterness. Why? Because he learned that no one can truly offend a disciplined mind. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. That was his rule. In conversation, it means choose not to take things personally, and you'll never lose your peace. Respond with principle, not pride. React with patience, not pain. The world will try to pull you into its noise. Don't follow. Stand still, like a mountain watching a storm pass. Because storms always end, but mountains remain. And that's why emotional control is not just a conversation habit, it's a life philosophy. It makes people like you not because you're agreeable, but because you're trustworthy. People are drawn to those who remain calm when others lose control. They see strength, stability, and safety, virtues that never go out of style. The Stoics' calm doesn't silence others, it inspires them to rise to your level. That's the quiet influence of self-mastery, the kind that doesn't shout, but commands.
The fourth Stoic conversation habit is one few people truly understand: the power of genuine praise. In a world addicted to validation, most compliments feel empty, currency spent for approval. We praise to be liked, to be seen, to make others like us. But the Stoics saw that flattery is a subtle form of dishonesty, and dishonesty is chaos in disguise. Seneca wrote, "He who praises you to your face will talk behind your back." To the Stoics, the highest form of praise was sincerity, admiration without agenda, respect without need. It was not given to gain favor, but to affirm truth. And truth, when spoken with purity, holds a gravity that no performance can match. Marcus Aurelius was surrounded by courtiers who lived on flattery. Every decision he made was echoed by voices seeking his favor. Yet he wrote in Meditations, "Don't be satisfied with just breathing in the air others breathe. Think for yourself." In conversation, he extended that same principle. Never let your words be dictated by what others want to hear. Praise for Marcus was not a social tool, it was a moral act. When he commended a soldier, he did it not to inspire loyalty, but to honor virtue. His compliments were not emotional sugar, they were mirrors of truth. Modern psychology supports what the Stoics instinctively knew. People can sense authenticity in milliseconds. When praise is genuine, it registers in the brain as safety. But when it's manipulative, it triggers skepticism. That's why false charm fades fast and quiet sincerity lingers. The Stoics' strength was that they never gave empty words. Their admiration was selective, deliberate, deserved. And because of that, it meant something. In conversation, when you praise someone with intention, not to please, but to reflect their virtue, they feel recognized, not seduced. That feeling builds trust faster than any trick. But to praise sincerely, you must see clearly, and that's why this habit grows out of the previous ones. Only the person who listens deeply, asks wisely, and stays calm can recognize truth in others. The shallow eye sees performance, the Stoic eye sees character. When Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, he didn't flatter him, he challenged him. Yet, in between his advice, he offered genuine respect. "I am glad that you have begun to make yourself a better man." It wasn't an exaggeration, it was an acknowledgement. Real praise uplifts without inflating. It says, "I see your effort, not your image." In your own conversations, try this. Instead of complimenting someone's achievements, honor their virtues. Don't say, "You're so successful." Say, "I admire how consistent you've been." Don't say, "You're talented." Say, "Your discipline shows." The Stoic separates the external from the internal. They don't feed the ego, they nourish the spirit. That's why their words heal, because sincere praise is rare, and the rarest things are the most valuable. Zeno once said, "Well-being is realized by small steps, but it is truly no small thing." Apply that to human interaction. Well-being grows when we are seen truthfully. When you acknowledge someone's effort, patience, or integrity, you remind them that virtue still matters. You become a reflection of their best self, and in turn, they will see you as part of that reflection. That's how genuine admiration works. It forms a quiet bond of mutual respect. This habit transforms how people feel around you, because while flattery feeds pride, sincerity feeds peace. One fades, the other endures. The Stoic understands that truth itself is praise, that to recognize goodness is to affirm the order of the universe. When you live and speak from that perspective, your words become both grounding and elevating. They make people feel not just liked, but understood. And that is the essence of Stoic communication, to use words not to decorate, but to dignify. Praise sparingly, but truthfully. Admire quietly, but deeply. Because the most powerful compliment is not, "You're amazing," it's, "You are consistent."
And in a world that values noise over virtue, that kind of recognition is revolutionary.
There is a quiet kind of strength that never shouts, a power that comes not from showing perfection, but from admitting imperfection without shame. This is the fifth Stoic habit, the courage to be honest about your flaws, your fears, and your humanity. The modern world teaches us that connection is built through confidence, but the Stoics knew something deeper, that trust is built through truth. And truth sometimes sounds like, I don't know, I was wrong, or even, that hurt me. Seneca said, to be free is to be honest with oneself. The Stoic understood that the moment you stop pretending, you stop being enslaved by image. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, could have hidden behind power, yet his private writings, the Meditations, reveal a man constantly confessing his struggles, his anger, his fatigue, his self-doubt. Don't be ashamed of needing help, he wrote. It's like using a handrail when climbing a staircase. Imagine that, the ruler of an empire reminding himself it's okay to need support. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. To the Stoic, admitting imperfection was not humiliation, but liberation. Because only the unguarded mind can grow. Only the honest soul can truly connect. In conversations, we often armor ourselves with confidence, hoping to impress. But that armor also blocks intimacy. People don't connect with your mask, they connect with your reality. Stoicism teaches that humility is not self-deprecation, it's self-clarity. It's saying, I am not above you, I am walking beside you. And that subtle shift transforms how others feel around you. When you can speak openly about your journey, your lessons, your setbacks, your ongoing efforts to master yourself, people don't see weakness, they see reflection. They see courage wrapped in truth. Modern psychology calls this authentic vulnerability, a trait strongly linked to trust and influence. When you express your truth calmly and without drama, you give others permission to be real too. That's what makes a Stoic different from the pretender. They do not expose pain to seek pity. They expose truth to seek clarity. They do not overshare to gain attention. They reveal enough to be understood. There's a profound dignity in that balance, a kind of transparency that strengthens rather than weakens respect. Epictetus often reminded his students that every human, no matter how wise, is still learning. He said, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. It's a line that slices through ego. In a world where everyone wants to appear certain, the Stoic finds peace in uncertainty. Because certainty closes the mind. Humility opens it. When you can admit that you're still learning, you invite others into a shared experience, the endless pursuit of wisdom. And that shared pursuit is what makes people feel safe around you. In conversation, this habit shows up in subtle ways. When you forget a name, admit it kindly. When you misspeak, correct yourself without defensiveness. When someone teaches you something, thank them genuinely. These tiny acts signal emotional maturity, the essence of Stoicism. Marcus once wrote, if someone can show me I'm mistaken, I'll gladly change. Imagine how disarming it is when someone hears those words, not as weakness, but as strength, because truth is magnetic. And when you live it out loud, others are drawn in. The Stoic's humility doesn't beg for approval, it invites respect. It's the difference between saying, I'm not good enough, and I'm still improving. One shrinks, the other grows. One seeks validation, the other embodies virtue. Seneca put it beautifully. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Vulnerability, then, is the quiet arena where self-mastery is proven. Each moment you choose truth over pretense, you reinforce your strength, and people feel that authenticity like warmth in winter. This habit doesn't make you likable because you appear perfect, it makes you likable because you appear real. And in today's world of filtered lives and flawless masks, that realness is rare enough to be irresistible. When you speak honestly, without performance, you remind others that it's okay to be human. You don't just connect, you heal. And in the end, that is the Stoic way. Not to impress, but to express. Not to dominate, but to elevate. Not to pretend you are unbreakable, but to show that you can bend without breaking.
There is a kind of communication that exists beyond words, a space between sentences where understanding lives. The Stoics mastered this space. Habit number 6 is not about how you speak, but how you exist in a conversation. It's the silent art of presence, the ability to make people feel deeply seen, even when you say very little. In an age that rewards volume over depth, silence has become rare, and that's why it's powerful. When the world talks too much, the one who listens becomes unforgettable. Marcus Aurelius, often surrounded by senators and soldiers, wrote in Meditations, "Listen with the intent to understand, not to reply." For an emperor, that meant restraining the urge to dominate the room. For us, it means remembering that listening is not waiting for your turn to speak. It is absorbing, observing, reflecting. It's letting another person feel, maybe for the first time in days, that they're truly being heard. Because when you give someone your full attention, you give them proof that they matter. And that is the purest form of respect. Modern neuroscience backs this ancient truth. When someone listens attentively, making eye contact, nodding slightly, maintaining calm, it activates the same neural pathways in the speaker's brain that signal safety and belonging. In other words, your silence literally tells their nervous system, "You're safe here." That's why Stoic presence is magnetic. It's not that they say something extraordinary, it's that their stillness feels extraordinary in a restless world. Epictetus taught his students that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. To him, conversation was not a performance, but a practice of self-control. When you can sit in stillness, allowing others to finish their thought without interrupting, without rushing to fix, without projecting, you embody mastery. You demonstrate what most people secretly crave, the experience of being fully witnessed. The Stoic doesn't listen to respond. They listen to understand the soul behind the sound. In modern life, silence often feels awkward. We fill it quickly, fearing disconnection. But to the Stoic, silence is connection. It's in those pauses that honesty surfaces. When you allow space, people reveal their real selves. They step out from behind their social masks because your calm makes it safe to do so. Marcus often reflected on this kind of stillness. Be like the rock against which the waves crash, and it stands firm. In conversation, your presence can be that rock. Steady, calm, non-reactive. You don't need to absorb their chaos. You simply remain unmoved by it. And ironically, that's what helps others find peace in your company. Try this next time. When someone speaks, let your attention become undivided. Notice not only their words, but their tone, their pauses, their breathing. Resist the urge to mentally prepare your response. Simply be there. This kind of listening is meditation in motion, a Stoic form of mindfulness. When you do this, you begin to understand people beneath their noise. And when people feel understood, they associate that feeling of peace with you. That's the invisible bond of Stoic communication. Seneca wrote that nothing to my way of thinking is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. If you can be at peace in silence with yourself, you can be at peace in silence with others. The untrained mind fears stillness because it exposes the noise within. The Stoic mind welcomes it because it knows that in stillness, truth is born. The more you practice this quiet attention, the more powerful your presence becomes. You start to notice subtle shifts in people, a softened expression, a slower breath, a glance that says, "Thank you." This is the paradox. You make people like you most when you stop trying to make them like you. When you simply are, calm, grounded, listening without judgment, you become rare. People are drawn not to your words, but to the peace you carry. That peace is Stoic magnetism, influence without effort, connection without noise. Because the one who can sit comfortably in silence has mastered both himself and the moment.
We've come to the end, but the truth is, all the previous habits point to these last two. The seventh Stoic conversation habit is to speak from intention, not impulse. The eighth is to leave every interaction with grace. No attachment, no bitterness, no unfinished storms. Together, they form the Stoics' invisible signature, the way they move through conversation as calmly as they move through life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let no act be aimless. That includes your words." To a Stoic, every conversation is an opportunity to practice virtue, patience, courage, honesty, and kindness. To speak from intention means to make each word a reflection of your values, not your moods. Epictetus reminded his students, first learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. Modern people rush to fill silence with noise, to express without reflection, to argue rather than understand. But the Stoic pauses. They breathe. They ask themselves, is this necessary? Is this kind? Is this true? If the answer fails any one of those tests, they choose silence, because silence cannot be misquoted. This isn't passivity, it's precision. They know that careless speech can destroy trust faster than time can rebuild it. Intention is their armor, and calm is their weapon.